Hello, perverts! Dear viewers. So, prostitutes in ancient China. Let's go! The earliest Chinese prostitutes were supposedly witches in the Shang dynasty around 3,000 years ago. Their job was to pray to the god on people's behalf, but I guess it didn't pay very well, so they ended up offering sex in exchange for food. Though a lot of historians now say this is complete BS.
Then why are you talking about it?
Good point. Anyway, prostitutes in ancient China could be roughly divided into 5 categories. First, palace prostitutes. They were basically singers and dancers for the emperor's pleasure, and the emperor could sleep with them at any time.
Ooh la la, I have an His Majesty has an You, go What were they saying? Okay, fuck you.
Then, there were state prostitutes, women who were summoned to perform at parties attended by government officials. Legally, they couldn't offer sexual services, but in reality, things were often different. For example, Marco Polo said that while he was visiting Beijing, he will send a state prostitute every night.
So if I go to Beijing, will they also send me a state prostitute?
Now they'll throw you in jail. Next, army prostitutes, women who slept with soldiers. They were usually women captured in war, were the wives and daughters of convicted officials. Then, there were house prostitutes. They were basically the property of their master, who could do whatever he wanted with them, like using their body to warm his hands, or even using them as chess pieces. One official in the Ming dynasty liked to use the mouth of his house prostitutes as spittoons, basically spit buckets.
What about sex?
Well, that too. Finally, we've got commercial prostitutes, basically women who worked in brothels. Compared to the other 4 types, they had a lot more freedom and could make more money. But it was by no means easy. First, you had to study.
What the hell?
You see, in ancient China, people were very conservative, and young women knew almost nothing about how to have, the sex. So if, unfortunately, you decided to join the brothel business, usually because you were deep in debt, or because your family sold you off because they were deep in debt. Anyway, first, you had to learn how to, do it. Usually, you'd begin by reading the 30 books the brothel madam gave you. They were basically picture books, since you were illiterate anyway. Next, you would watch how your colleagues serve clients by peeping through a hidden hole in the wall.
What are they doing? Okay, seriously, fuck you.
Then, you practiced with the other girls who had just joined, and apparently, there were a lot of breathing techniques involved. But knowing how to please clients in bed wasn't enough. You also needed to know how to seduce them, like how to make eye contact, how to sit, stand, lie down, and even how to act angry. Also, it was better if you bound your feet with this long-ass strip of cloth until they ended up looking like this, because men in ancient China all had a crazy foot fetish. Finally, when you were ready, it was time to meet the clients. You put on makeup and went to sit in the front hall, and if a client picked you, you'd offer him a cup of tea. After he drank it, he'd pay you.
To have sex?
No, just to flirt. That meant he had booked you for his next visit. And when he came back, usually 2 hours later,
That fast?
probably, then you took him to your room. You sit on the bed with him and read those dirty books together, just to get him more excited. Then, you might want to brush his leg with one of your freakishly small feet, by accident, of course, which will make him very excited. Then, it was time for battle.
Hehe.
Go away. Anyway, an erotic novel from the Qing dynasty gave a detailed account of the techniques prostitutes used in bed, and it went something like this. You should lie down and face the enemy. If he strikes first, counterattack his weak spot. If the target is small and agile, beat the drum. If it's big and slow, lock it in. If the enemy is impatient, match his tempo. If the enemy is too patient, speed up the tempo. If the enemy lacks endurance, slow things down. If the enemy is resilient, take some breaks. If the enemy likes detours, lure him in. If the enemy comes straight at you, distract him.
I'm ready to fight.
But battling the client in bed isn't all there is to it. You also need to know how to make him stay. After all, sex is never as powerful as love. For example, you could cry when he was about to leave. It worked sometimes, but that's too basic. Try cutting a strand of your hair and tying it around his arm. That'll make him think about you all day. Or better yet, tattoo his name on your chest. That sure make him go crazy. Plus, even if it didn't work, it showed the next client you were the romantic type. Men like that in a brothel girl.
You men are pigs.
Well, we are. Now, you might think being a prostitute wasn't so bad after all. Wrong. For starters, many of their clients were perverts. They often took pills or applied creams down there to make it last longer.
How long?
5 minutes?
Dude, that's just you.
Also, they like to use all sorts of weird tools on you, as perverts tend to do. And you'd better pray your client wasn't a eunuch, because eunuchs were the worst. Since they could no longer, thrust, they would bite, scratch, slap, punch, kick, whip, or even cut you. And you had to take it for the money, only for the brothel madam to take at least 40% of it, just like YouTube. And if you fail to please the client, the brothel madam will punish you hard. She'd tie you up and whip you, and that was if you were lucky. If she was really upset, she'd put a cat down your pants, tie them shut, and beat the cat so it clawed the hell out of you. At worst, she'd pierce you with a red-hot needle, often in the chest. And if you dared to go to the authorities, murder wasn't out of the question. Anyway, as you can see, it wasn't easy being a prostitute in ancient China, or a woman in general, for that matter, because the world is a patriarchy and men are pigs. My wife told me to say that. Anyway, bye-bye.
I'm going to unsubscribe.